So in today's video, we're going to be making an alternative metal / modern metal style track. We're going to use the 8-string. It's going to have an awesome breakdown. In fact, here's a little sneak preview. But yeah, let's get into it. I got my Strandberg 8-string here. I'm probably going to do some type of 8-string genty riffs at some point, and maybe we'll try to get like a chorus, a verse, and like a breakdown type riff along the way. Let's pull up Logic. I kind of have an idea. What I've done is I pulled up a template I have where I have some drums. I have a bass library if I need it. I have Odin 3 to program some guitars if I need it, and then I have a Nolly X here to process the guitar. So yeah, I want to first record just a basic kind of chord progression, and then I'm going to riff some leads over that, and we are going to see where we go. I'm going to come in, I'm going to pan these guitars left and right. So the way I've set this up in Logic is I have a track stack of 2 tracks, and I have one instance of Archetype Nolly X in stereo on top of it. The purpose of that is I don't have to have 2 separate instances of the plugin, so I don't have to worry about messing with the tones. I can just mess with it once. Cool, nothing fancy. First thing I'm going to do here now is I'm going to get another layer, pan it to the middle, and then we are going to install, let's see, we're going to go to, where am I going? I'm going to Neural DSP, I'm going to Nolly X, and I'm going to mono, and we're going to grab a lead track here. So pull this up, make it small so it's easier to see, and we are just going to go through the presets. And let's see, down lower, I'll zoom out a bit here actually. There is a bunch of lead ones, and I'm blanking. Let's do AT lead and see what that is. I have my monitoring off. Cool. All right, so I'm just gonna riff on this now. All right, so I have a cool pattern, and now hopefully I'll be able to track it in roughly 1 to 5 takes. So let's go. So I went through all these different iterations on this pattern. It all kind of stems around this. I was trying to mix up the, sometimes doing like a different endings to try to spice it up. But I think given that most of my music ends up being vocal driven, it'll actually be better to have it be simpler. This would be the kind of thing that maybe I would come back and re-record later after having other ideas. Sometimes it's nice to be more complicated. I'm going to try to throw in some fills and stuff, but in the interest of moving on with the song, I'm going to call it here simple and do a harmony, because I'd rather go to vibe than be perfect. And again, working with vocal-driven music, sometimes you write a whole instrumental, you end up realizing that it doesn't work as a song, either because it's too complicated or just you don't have any ideas. So, a lot of tracks get abandoned. So sometimes I don't want to put in that extra time getting that riff perfect, because I know, like, okay, well, if I end up fleshing it out, maybe I'll come back and perfect it, or maybe it actually is best just to keep it simple. So you do have the balance between songwriting and technicality or making interesting riffs, right? I'd rather have a better song than a better riff, if that makes sense. But I do want to harmonize it here. So we have so I'm just going to do it an octave up on the neck pickup, and we're going to see how that sounds. And I'm also going to turn this down. That sounds sick. Now what I'm actually going to try is if I duplicate this rhythm guitar, and I'm going to make a center channel, and I'm going to see if I can do like a higher version of this. So it's not an octave up. Some of it will be. Something like that. We'll see how it goes. Actually, I could do it higher. Let me try that. And the purpose of the track isn't necessarily to hear it per se, it's just to kind of fill out the sound of the rhythm guitars. Yeah, just add some thickness to it, and then like mixing this, you might mix that differently to make it stand out more, stand out less, but if you don't have the track, you can't do it. So sometimes I like to do those layers in. This is something I could do later, but it's something so easy to do now that I just do it, whereas riffing on this can take time. So that's kind of how I balance those things. So this is kind of like a chorus, right? Now we get to decide what we want to do next. We could do a verse thing, which I think I actually have an idea. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to copy, I'm actually going to move this over. And I'm going to copy the drums for now, but I'm going to go into them, and I'm going to move these cymbals to hi-hats, if I can find the right one. There we go. That's the first thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this lead guitar. I'm going to go and I'm going to change the setting to be some type of clean thing. So I'm going to go back to Nolly, and let's do like the best clean. I'm going to turn on my monitoring here. That doesn't... Why is that not like remotely clean? Go to no cab clean. Now the first thing I could try, this is like a lazy thing to do, but if I grab this clean, or this lead guitar, and put it on here. I actually kind of dig it. Now I wonder... Try with it, sticking with it first, but I'm going to pan it to the right. I'm going to do some rhythm stuff on the other side, and I think I probably wouldn't keep these delays as crazy as they are, but vibe. I can imagine putting some synths under this too. Cool. That's actually a really fun vibe. I'm going to come into this track, this no cab clean, and I'm going to turn off the delay, but keep the reverb. And I added this other track here, and on this I want to do, I don't know exactly. And just to add some icing on the cake here, and I'm just kind of panning these somewhat randomly, I guess. I'm going to do an octave here, which would be F. I'm going to do it up there. I need to turn on my monitoring and close whatever the heck that was. This almost might be better as a bridge, kind of like an ambient interlude thing. We'll keep it as a bridge, or a verse rather, for now. Next thing I'm going to do is, this should definitely be like a ×2 situation. And let's see what it sounds like with less layers. If it was like a building thing, and maybe there's no drums at first. Heck yeah. Now, you notice that when the chorus came in, it was very quiet, so I turned down the volume of all these clean ones. And that makes that chorus a little more impactful. The other thing, obviously, there's going to be bass guitar, so let me quickly program that up. So I'm going to right-click, create new MIDI. I'm going to get a pattern here. And again, we're just going to kind of keep it basic now. This is also MIDI bass. Sometimes we will track real bass. Sometimes I keep the MIDI bass. And this MIDI bass is just Eurobass 2. Heck yeah, so that already makes the chorus more impactful. Another thing that I will sometimes do is kind of like an inverted swell thing. I'll show you what I mean. So I will, this is kind of like trying to simulate guitar feedback, which you can't really do with most amp modelers at least. So what I'll do is I will record something like... And so we have that, which is just like a ringing note, and I will shorten it, move it over here. I guess technically I could invert it or something, like I could come up here and say reverse, and then I could do a fade tool and fade it in. Now automating this would be better, automating the volume. Doing a fade in is weird because like I'm basically fading the input of this audio file into the amp modeler, which isn't the same as the volume of the whole thing through the amp. But let's see what this sounds like. So we need something shorter, and this is where automation would be better, because we need like a more aggressive swoop. So I'm going to make this as aggressive as I can. still too quick. So I'm going to make it quicker for now. This is something that I would do with the final, right? Because I don't want to do any automation yet, because then I can't just adjust my sliders here anymore. So I'll just do that. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for now. Sometimes I'll double track that, and that just gives you like a different kind of feeling. And sometimes I'll double track it and do multiple notes so that it really sounds like this chaotic thing, and then I'll automate that going up into the swell. And then of course you have like swell plugins and swell samples, and then bass drops, and all of that is more the pre-production. So when I'm tracking, I try not to do too much of this stuff. I just track what I need, and then I go back through, and then I'll like use some plugins, and then eventually I export stuff and send them to my producer. So I'm kind of doing like a pre-production, and I do the vocal production, and then my producer gets the songs with all the stems, and then he does the final like production and mixing and mastering, and he takes it to another level. But that's kind of why I'm doing the way that I'm doing it now. Now, in terms of how much stuff gets repeated, that kind of comes down to when I'm planning the vocals. So I will kind of, before I go to the studio or plan on recording at home, depending on what I'm doing, I will kind of riff, usually in the middle of the night with a voice note, and just kind of get a vibe for like, okay, these are some vocal ideas I could do. This part should be twice as long. This part should be 4 times long. This one should be 1 time long. And then kind of structure it, copy, paste, move stuff around. And then that way I'm using the vocal ideas to influence the song structure, because like since I'm doing vocal driven music, the vocals take kind of a high priority here. So that's how I think about how am I arranging like the structure of the song. So now we have this going to the chorus, and now we're kind of getting to like, do we do a breakdown here? And actually, I think this would most likely be a 2x chorus, with the way that I tend to write choruses. In the second half would have a different drum groove, and I might layer something differently. So I'm just going to 2x it now, and then we are going to do a breakdown after this. And I don't want this bass here. Now, sometimes I would do this by programming the drums first, and sometimes I wouldn't. So I think here, let's do a little bit of drum programming to get a vibe for this. And actually I'll come down here so you can see what we're doing. And actually, let me just jam for a little bit. Okay, that's fucking sick. I'm actually really digging that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this verse thing or whatever and paste it after, just so we kind of get a feel for how things would be repeating. And then what we want to do next is I'm going to experiment with, what if I try to do like a clean lead thing over this? I think actually I'm just doing this strumming thing, and I think it's cooler. So I'm going to try recording that and see what it sounds like tracked. And I'm actually going to clone this, make a new layer, move this to that layer, and then add a stupid amount of reverb. So I'm going to go into Valhalla and do shimmer in stereo. And I'm going to clone that. I should probably do grouping instead of doing all these clones, but we're writing, we're working, we're playing around with what we got. So now I'm going to try doing like a harmony version. Alright, so I ended up recording a second layer that's just the single note. without the bending, so it just adds some dissonance to it. And I have it down pretty low in the mix. So now what we got to do is we got to program some bass, and then we're going to be ready to hear this sucker. All right, here we go. Sick. So that there's a lot I would change, but this is all part of the process, right? So the second half of this chorus would of course change. The instrumentation would build up, the drums would change, the vocals are going to be different. The end of this breakdown, they'll probably be more seamless, like maybe final hit or ringing out guitar. And the way there's probably be some screaming vocals I would do here, and then they would overlap into here, then clean vocals would come back in. So those are all the little things that are happening in my head while I'm doing this. I'm just kind of thinking like, what's the final product? And where should I put my effort in now versus where should I put me in later? Just because, time is money and money is time and all that. And like you only have so much to write. So anyways, that's the song. I hope you dig it. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I will see you next video. Bye.